Hello, Anthem. So on Sunday, this past Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, February 3rd, we looked at some significant chapters in the Bible in our series, The Good Book. And we looked at 3 chapters in Exodus. And one of those primary ones was Exodus 14, where the children of Israel had come up to the Red Sea and the army, Pharaoh's army, was pursuing them. And so they were caught in a really bad spot. And they didn't know what to do because they couldn't go through the sea. They couldn't fight the army. They felt like God had left them out there to die and had left them alone. And God comes in and says, no, I've done this. This is part of the plan. This is part of the purpose. This is so that my glory will be revealed. And it's really hard to get our minds around this whole idea of God's glory when we're in a bad spot. So let's talk about the God's glory part. What does this mean, God's glory? Now, we're supposed to bring glory to God. Now, one of the primary ways that people think of bringing glory to God is thanking Him, prayers of thanksgiving, songs, hymns, spiritual songs like the Apostle Paul talks about, and that's definitely a part of it. That's definitely a part of worship. There's musical worship. There's worshiping with our service. There's worshiping with our attitude. There's worshiping God with our mind. But this idea that we are to bring God's glory, what is centered around there is that we are God's glory. I mean, this is why we were created. We were created for God. God is not created for us. That is why, and this is real important, that is why when you create a God in your own mind, and any God that you can fully explain, you've created. Any God that somebody can fully, they've created that God. And that's why a lot of man-made gods can be fully explained. Yahweh, the one true holy God, cannot be explained. There's so many things that He does that are not like us. His ways are not like mine, and I can't explain Him. And God did not create Himself for us. He created us for Him. And one of the key primary places that we find that is in Isaiah chapter 43. If you go to Isaiah chapter 43, I think it's verse 7 is primarily the one where he talks about, he says, bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth, everyone who is called by my name, and whom I have created for my glory, whom I have formed, even whom I have made. So you were made to bring God glory. That's why when you get caught up in stuff that's not bringing God's glory, it's not beneficial. That's why you feel empty, you feel lost, you don't feel like there's anything that happens with it because it's just so temporary. We just came off the Super Bowl. How disappointing was that? Was that not the lamest game ever? And it was boring and it wasn't exciting, and the team that always wins, and it's just like, the halftime thing was terrible unless you like shirtless guys with lots of tattoos. It was incredibly disappointing, and so much of life is like that. So much of life can be disappointing, and that's because we think somehow that life is about me, and life's about what I want, and about making sure my circumstances are there, and making sure I'm comforted in the way that I am supposed to be complicated. And we forget that I'm created for God's glory, and He created me for His glory. It's not me creating Him for my glory. So at the very heart of why I was created was for His glory. Genesis chapter 11 is not one of those significant chapters that we've looked at, but it is the story of the Tower of Babel. So this is after the flood. The world is beginning to populate again. And one of the things that God told him was to scatter, told him to scatter and multiply. The earth is big. I don't know if you've noticed that, but there's this big bad world out there with all kinds of things, and God wanted them to expand and to explore, and what they did is they huddled up in this one little spot. Now, one of the things that happens here is technology. And the technology, you can always mark this. The more that technology is introduced, the less God will be honored. The more technology, the less God will be involved in people's life. It just happens all the time. And one of the first technological advances that we had in the world was brick. Man figured out how to make brick. Y'all see Josh back there blowing off with the blower thingy? Y'all can tell Josh hi. Now he's blowing off the doors. That's just kind of what Josh does. even though it's raining and he's out there blowing, so I don't know what he's doing. So maybe that won't be too... Okay, he's leaving now. That's good. All right. Well, no, he's back. Oh, my goodness. Okay. No, he's not. He's... Okay, whatever. Boy, that was me squirreling. So here you go. The Tower of Babel. Technology. Man had the ability to make brick. And when you make a brick, you can build a building. And then you start figuring out how you build a bigger one. And so what they decided is they came up with this idea that they were going to build this tower. And the reason that they were going to build the tower was to make a name for themselves, which is a very interesting purpose for doing. And a lot of times people, back when I was a kid, were taught they were trying to build a tower to the sky so it could go up and be like God. And maybe that was part of that. But really what they were trying to do is they said, like they say in Genesis chapter 11, this is what they say. They say, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens." So they're going to build the world's first skyscraper. "And let us make a name for ourselves." That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to become. They wanted the glory. They wanted the honor. Instead of giving God the glory, instead of giving God the honor, they wanted to make it about themselves. You and I were created for God's honor. We were created for His glory. And when I am doing anything that goes against His honor and His glory, I am not going to be fulfilled. I'm going to have a very disappointing Super Bowl or whatever it is that you might think is going to get you there. So the challenge is to understand why I was created. I was created for God's glory. And knowing that I'm created for God's glory, what does that look like? What does it look like for me to live for God's glory day in and day out? And that's the journey that we're on as Christians, and that's the journey that we're on as our little version of a local church. And I am so excited and glad that you're a part of it. So let's continue to bring God glory and to make sure and not forget that God created me for Him. It's not about me creating God for me. Take care.